Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're completely dismantling the psychological concept of a secure sanctuary. We've got 3 chilling, absolutely true stories lined up that prove just how fragile our sense of security actually is. So grab a seat, maybe double-check those locks, and let's get right into it.
So what if the deepest threat to your safety isn't lurking out on the streets, but is actually hiding right inside your own home? It's the perfect cold open for what we're breaking down today. We spend so much time and money keeping the outside world, well, exactly there, outside. But today, we're exploring how easily that illusion of domestic security shatters, often without us even realizing the perimeter has been breached until it's way too late.
Part 1. The illusion of safety and dismantling this safe haven. We all naturally assume our locked doors, our Ring cameras, our quiet suburban streets. We assume they protect us, right? We basically equate suburbia with safety. The literal definition of a safe haven is a place of absolute refuge. But what happens when that concept gets completely turned on its head? The really fascinating and honestly terrifying thing we'll see today is that true crime doesn't always happen in some dark, abandoned alleyway. Sometimes the most profound violations happen in the exact spaces where we feel the most secure, where our guard is completely down.
Which brings us to part 2, the threat next door, or the danger adjacent.
Our first story starts with a Dutch couple. They traded their modest home for a larger one right next door, and actually sold their old property to a Polish couple. Now, these new neighbors seemed perfectly normal during the sale, speaking English, asking for basic house tips, just regular neighbor stuff. But that polite small talk, total calm before the storm. Watch how fast this escalates. Month 1, it starts with strange noises. We're talking bizarre midnight banging and loud music blasting through the walls. Fast forward to month 7, the neighbor comes home with his car severely scraped up on both sides. He blames a concrete pole in a trailer, but the physics just do not add up. Then month 8, there's a suspicious daytime burglary. The men caught on the doorbell cam are calmly discussing the target in Polish. By month 9, a full-blown criminal underworld literally spills into quiet suburbia. I'm talking a violent hit-and-run home invasion where thieves are loading stolen flat screens into a getaway car right on the couple's front lawn.
7 minutes. That is exactly how long it took for the police to arrive during that hit and run. And guys, this is where it gets incredibly surreal. The cops intercept the men loading the car. The driver looks the officer dead in the eye and claims to be the Polish neighbor, using his actual name. The catch? The suspect spoke fluent Dutch, and the real neighbor hadn't spoken a single word of Dutch in the 9 months he lived there. That lie immediately sparked a violent police pursuit tearing right through those quiet neighborhood streets.
Now, while the police are dealing with the arrested suspects, the actual Polish neighbor rings the couple's doorbell, and he was completely unrecognizable. The guy was a swollen, bloody mess. One eye swollen shut, mouth torn, one arm hanging completely useless, and he's covered in these defensive stab wounds. He looked absolutely feral. And yet, when an officer actually tried to step in and help, this battered man flat out refused to file a report or cooperate with the police in any way.
So the couple, who are obviously terrified of this whole underworld drama, refused his request to sleep over. But they do drop him at the hospital around 10:30 p.m. Well, at 1 a.m., their dog starts growling. They check the camera, and boom, there he is, right back on their porch. Suddenly, a car pulls up. The neighbor panics and crouches down, hiding in the dark shadows behind the couple's cars in the driveway. It turns out to be his wife. She steps into this pale yellow glow of a street lamp, spots him hiding in the dark, and just lets out this haunting, guttural wail that echoed through the entire empty street. Whatever lethal mix of drugs or debt or marriage issues caused this whole shebang, the danger had literally parked itself right in their driveway.
Moving on to part 3, the threat outside, right at the glass.
Now, let's step just a little bit closer to home. We're shifting from the Netherlands to a split-level home in Montreal, Canada. And we see some really horrifying dramatic irony here. A father totally brushes off his 15-year-old daughter's fears. He checks the yard, finds nothing, and tells her, hey, it's a safe neighborhood, it's just the wind, stop watching scary movies. But the horrifying reality? Because there were missing plastic panels on her vertical blinds, a man was actually standing motionless in the dark outside, staring directly into her ground-floor bedroom. To make matters worse, the layout of her split-level room meant she had sliding mirror closet doors that constantly reflected her window. So even when she genuinely tried to ignore it, she was physically forced to see movement through those gaps in the blinds. She said she saw something move reflected right in the mirror. For years, she heard shuffling footsteps and heavy breathing in the dead of night.
but she just kept constantly convincing herself it was all in her head.
And this next detail still haunts the family. Did the backyard neighbor secretly know the man who was watching this teenager for years? See, during a massive windstorm in December 2021, the dad stepped outside and finally caught the guy staring into his daughter's illuminated bedroom. When the dad yelled, the man effortlessly vaulted the back fence, like as if he'd done it 100 times before. But when the parents rushed over to warn the older woman living in the house behind them, she wouldn't even open the door. Instead, she suspiciously yelled at them to leave or she would call the cops. Like, was she hiding him? Did she know him? It's a mystery we still don't have answers to.
Which brings us to part 4, the threat within the walls, the ultimate terror. As you'll see, a locked window really doesn't guarantee safety, and that leads us to our final, and frankly, most terrifying case. We are moving from the driveway, to the window glass, to the literal spaces we physically inhabit. This one takes place in a cheap, newly renovated home in Alberta. Just a bit after moving in and finishing the basement for their teenage daughter, the family goes out for a birthday dinner. They come back, the front door is standing wide open. The dad actually grabbed a heavy wrench to search the house, and they called the cops. But here is the truly chilling part. The police found absolutely no one, and nothing was stolen. The single tiny anomaly in the whole house was that the books on the teenager's basement bookshelf had been moved or knocked over. The family was spooked, but they nervously brushed it off.
Over the next couple of weeks, the teenager started hearing these strange, shifting noises coming from inside the walls and underneath her basement room. But, trusting logic over her own gut instinct, she just dismissed it. She reasoned, it's just the old pipes settling in an older house. I mean, we all do this, right? We rationalize the completely irrational just so we can feel safe going to sleep.
But it wasn't the pipes. One night, she's playing her Nintendo DS in total silence under the covers at 2 a.m., and she heard it, a clear human laugh. And it was coming directly from the wall right next to her bed, literally inches away. Her heart absolutely froze. But after laying there still as a stone for 30 minutes and not hearing anything else, she somehow forced herself to pass it off as sleep-deprived imagination.
Fast forward a few months and the threat becomes active. Her newborn baby sister is now sharing that basement room with her. The parents head out for a late dinner, leaving the teen in the living room upstairs. Suddenly, loud, heavy footsteps echo through the baby monitor in the kitchen. She knows for a fact she's the only one walking around upstairs. Then a faint shish sound comes right through the speaker. That's followed by a massive crash, and her baby sister just starts screaming. The threat wasn't hiding anymore.
In an act of just raw, incredible courage, the teen sprinted to our parents' room and grabbed her dad's rifle. Now, she didn't have the key to the trigger lock, and there was absolutely no ammo. She literally just planned to use the buttstock as a club to defend herself if she had to. She crept down the stairs, aimed at the crib, and yelled, "I'm armed, come out before I find you." When she heard nothing, she grabbed her baby sister, sprinted back upstairs, completely barricaded the basement door with a chair, and called 911.
When the dad got home and asked the cops to check behind that built-in bookshelf, they discovered it was actually pushed open slightly. It was a secret door. Behind it was an unfinished utility room full of pipes, and inside, they found food wrappers, a missing cup from the family's own kitchen, stolen lotion, a switchblade, and a partially eaten, still fresh apple. A heavily armed intruder had literally been living in secret inside the walls of their house. He managed to escape out a fully open basement window while the police were still out front talking to the family.
But honestly, that wasn't even the most horrifying part. A few days later, the teen was exploring that secret room herself, and she found a tiny hole drilled into the wall. When she looked through it, she realized it pointed directly at her bed and her dresser. That mundane tiny detail is just the ultimate invasion of privacy. It proves that a complete stranger had been silently watching her sleep, change her clothes, do her homework, and just live her life entirely undetected, from mere inches away.
Part 5. Trusting your darkest instincts, the chilling reality. So as we look at the dark connective tissue binding these stories together, there is a truly terrifying thematic escalation here. We move from Act 1, where the threat was adjacent property violence spilling right into a driveway. Then Act 2, the threat moves to right outside the window glass. And finally, Act 3, an armed voyeur living inside the very walls of the home. In every single one of these cases, the victims initially rationalized their sensory instincts. They blamed concrete poles, the wind, or old house pipes. And in every single case, ignoring those gut instincts proved to be a near-fatal mistake. Which leaves us with this final, fairly unsettling thought. We lock our doors every night to keep the monsters out, but our source material today proves that the perimeter is mostly an illusion. Knowing how easily someone can slip through the cracks of our supposedly secure lives,
How well do you really know the spaces you call home? Tonight, when the house gets completely quiet, maybe don't be so quick to ignore that bump in the night. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and hey, stay safe out there.